One of the things that we often forget about doing is managing the single most important business machine each and every one of us has, which is ourselves, our mind, and our emotions.
If we're standing at the top of the mountain looking down, we're doing it wrong. If I called it an emotional overdraft, how does that feel? Does that sound like the thing? And that every single person said, yes, I've got one. Yes, I wish I didn't. Who is this guy? But feelings matter, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the idea of an emotional overdraft, so this is intangible and tangible concept. It's when you're subsidizing the success of your business at your own mental or physical cost. What used to bring you power, what used to bring you energy, what used to plug you in, is no longer a radiator. It's become a drain. It's net negative. It's taking from you. Something had happened in my brain to stop me going to that meeting. And yet I was running a business, a reasonably successful business, which relied on me going to those sorts of meetings to win new business, to keep the business going. If you have a phrase like emotional overdraft, it then gives you a chance to talk about it. It gives you a label that's useful. It's shorthand. And you go, maybe I'm too deep in my overdraft. Maybe I've been here too long and I need to do something differently. Maybe you need to take a break. Maybe you need to do something differently. Maybe you need to delegate.
We hear so often
Mm.
of these executives that jog every day, they play tennis, and then they're, in their mid 40s, early 50s, and they drop dead of a heart attack. And we ask ourselves, how's this possible? A lot of people who are overweight, well, their mitochondrial health, or their metabolic health rather, is suffering due to lack of sleep, overstress, high cortisol levels. So all of this plays a part.
The
Really,
body
100.
keeps the score. And whatever your brain is trying to convince you of, your brain lies. Your body keeps the score.
If we can figure out a way to bank our emotional intelligence or our emotional energy to only use it when it's going to have the greatest impact, then that's got to give us a leg up.
He'd get to Christmas, he'd get a cold, he'd pick up some illness. He'd spend the whole of Christmas not with his family, but being sick. We create our feelings in our own thinking. They do not exist outside of us. We create them in our brains. We create our entire world in our brains. Our thinking creates our feelings, and our feelings create our behaviors. And then our behaviors drive our outcomes. The best thing you could do is take that time and invest it in the individual and help them understand what would have been a better report, how they could have done it differently. Because then, teach a man to fish rather than give him a fish. How come all my staff are idiots? How come I've got a company populated by people who don't take pride in their work? Well, hey, Andy, you just trained them. There's no such thing as bad dogs, just bad owners, The invisible line in the costs is the emotional overdraft. What cost has that profit really been at? And because we can't measure emotional overdraft, we don't put it in the numbers, so we ignore it and finance people pretend it doesn't exist. But it is there. Emotional overdraft is bloody greedy. It will borrow from everywhere. It'll borrow from your partner. It'll borrow from your kids. It'll borrow from the time that you used to spend in the gym. You also have to pay it back. If your phone runs out of battery,
Mm.
you wouldn't stand over the phone shouting,
Exactly.
one more call, one more call. You would know that is utterly ridiculous because
Right.
if the battery's gone, the battery's gone.
Right.
But yet we treat ourselves, we run the battery down and treat ourselves with no respect at all.
Nothing lowers stress like a well executed plan.
If it won't help us get there, let's not do it. Suddenly all your decision making becomes a bit simpler because it's taking us there or it's not taking us there. If it's not taking us there, then we don't do it. Your inbox is just somebody else's to-do list. Your job as the leader, your job as the founder, as the entrepreneur, your primary job is to be on the deck of that boat looking at the horizon.
Don't waste your time on things that are not worth your time. Time being the most valuable non-renewable resource any of us have anyway. The single most vital business instrument, machine, anything I have is me. It's with
Mm.
me everywhere I go, and nothing works without me, being at my best.
You should be moving at forever pace. And then when you need to sprint, you sprint. When you need to put in the effort, you put in the effort.